Why has shifting the power equation been chosen as the theme for this year's annual meeting?
Well, one could argue that power is always shifting, but I think this year we were quite aware, our members and our constituents, when we were discussing the thematics for Davos coming up, that there's an extraordinary and fundamental shifts, that the shifts in power, whether it be in business, from producers to consumers, whether it be in geopolitics, from west to east, is going at a tremendous pace, but it's also throwing up fundamental questions on how we organize and operate in a global environment. And we feel that this is quite important to examine in the annual meeting 2007.
And who are the people, who are the powers who are going to be examining this shift in the power equation in Davos?
Well, not unlike previous years, it'll be a variety of stakeholder groups. So Davos is a unique mix where we bring leading government officials, but also business communities and civil society, be it religious leaders, tech pioneers, to voices from labor, other media leaders, other parts of society, that all play a role of leading and defining the cultures and countries and societies in the world, and we'll have a very similar sort of melting pot of the people that make up the fabric of the global community.
If we take a closer look at the issues that are going to be on the table at the annual meeting, how have they been separated out so that participants can actually grapple with them, can actually move the agenda forward?
Well, we'll have, if your point of your question is, I think when we have such a wide mix of different people coming from different societies and different stakeholders, the global agenda, which we seek to shape with the annual meeting, is quite diverse. And so what we have to do is organize and highlight what we think are the key issues. So the annual meeting doesn't mean that we cover everything about everything in the world, but we do tend to focus and highlight on what are some of the key issues to understand, but just more importantly, what actions can be taken. And so with those actions, some of the things that we'll highlight as some of the key elements where we want people to focus. So there's cities. We'll have a series of sessions around cities as centers of innovation, sustainable cities, the need to build sustainable cities, the need to look at cities as a way of driving national economic policy, etc. Other areas which we'll look at are certainly sustainability and the need to scale sustainable solutions. Energy will certainly play a major role. Demographics, and as well as new models and collaborative organizations and collaborative approaches to problem solving, much as you're seeing maybe in the internet space like Web 2.0. The strength of organizations, you don't have to be on the web to understand the need to look outside their institutions in order to find the understanding and knowledge they need to solve problems.
The emergence of Asia, China and India in particular, will once again feature fairly prominently in the program of the annual meeting. What specific issues related to this topic, especially under the theme of the shifting power equation, are going to be addressed?
Yeah. I think you're right that in previous years we have focused on China and India, and we will continue to do it this year. But I think this year we're broadening it to also encompass other emerging markets. So you'll see a focus on Brazil as a key driver in Latin America and what's Latin America's driver. I think we'll have a number of sessions on Africa, and particularly Africa's recent success in generating economic growth in sub-Saharan Africa and how that can be maintained. and also instability in the Middle East. So while China and India are clearly new shapers of the emerging global architecture, we're broadening it out to include those other emerging market powers and how they are also playing a role and creating a much more diverse global economic space.
The economy, again, is also another issue that takes a lot of space in the program. As resource competition and the rise of new economic powers alter the global power equation that you've been talking about, what do you see as the primary challenge for the global community?
I think that when you look at the global environment, the economic environment over the past 5 years, it's actually been remarkably robust. Despite high oil prices, perceived imbalances, new powers emerging, we've experienced on a global economic basis tremendous growth. What I think is a concern, and certainly something that we will look in Davos, is the underlying institutional fabric that allows that economic development to be maintained. That there are significant strains, and the global trading frameworks, the institutional support for financial flows, basically the Bretton Woods system of global management that came out of World War II, due to the shifts of power, need to be revisited. And without that, you're going to see significant risks that globalization could lack the momentum it needs to be maintained. I think we also need to bear in mind some of the political dimensions of this and explore this in Davos. Not everybody at all times wins in the globalization game. The benefits, by and large, outweigh the negatives, but the benefits can come in lumpy forms, and this causes political strains, particularly in the national political arena. And so in order to maintain a healthy, vibrant economic growth environment, we need to take stock of the political realities as well as the global institutional frameworks that maintain that system if we're going to maintain momentum in economic growth. And I think what we're also challenging our members, particularly from the business community, is that now is the time to be quite vocal about this. The need to strengthen these institutions, to demonstrate the benefits of globalization and how it does lift people out of poverty, how it does solve problems, but also recognize the realities of the adjustments that causes at a societal basis.
If we look at issues such as the environment, sustainability, how are these issues going to be addressed at the annual meeting, and what's your vision for moving the debate on this forward so it moves really into a phase of implementation and action?
No, well, I think those are the key words: is implementation and action. We've described the problem for a number of years, and I think what our members and constituents are telling us is now that the forum should use its unique convening power and ability to draw together the various stakeholders to look for concrete actions that can be taken. I think the way we can most fundamentally do that is actually be bold enough to set key goals. Is that we would look at the annual meeting as a sense to establish a consensus on what it is that we actually want activity in addressing climate change to meet. What is that key goal that we want to arrive at? It's clearly continued accumulation of carbon deposits it cannot. It's not sustainable to go unabated throughout the century. So we actually have to draw a line in the sand and collectively have countries, regions, businesses, governments, civil society to all have a collective call to action to set out those goals. Secondly, if you're going to draw that line in the sand that this is the limit target that we're going to have on the amount of CO2 emitted, then we actually need the institutions in place to actually meet that goal. These are bold agendas. We will take that at the top level, and we think that's important for us to play a role. At a more micro level, we will spend a lot of time looking at not so much what technology should be invented, but what are the barriers for the technologies that we have to coming to full fruition in the marketplace. What are the things we need to do to scale some of the solutions that we currently have? And that can be in the field of energy and climate change, but it can also be in design and architecture and in materials and other kinds of approaches that allow us to have a much more sustainable approach to managing our societies and business.
The annual meeting has proven itself time and again to be a space where stakeholders from the public and private sectors can come together and form partnerships to initiate projects which continue way beyond the annual meeting, operate throughout the year, and have proven to be very sustainable. What's your vision for projects for new projects to come out of the annual meeting to continue this agenda that you're setting out now?
But just as make 2 points about it. First, the forum is active in trying to bring together and formalize certain kinds of networks and collaborative approaches on the problem sets. We will do things based on the problems that were just described. So in climate change, you'll see continued work that really stemmed off 2 years ago, that was kicked off with the Green Eagles round on climate change, into what are who are the people that we need to bring together at the table to form consensus around these goals in climate change. And I think you'll see some announcements in that regard in Davos. The same will be on sort of financial institutional reform, again addressing this concern on globalization. We have a number of ongoing activities in water management, in disaster relief, etc. Those will come out. But I'd make a point that is part of the forum's role and to sort of playing an active role to provide that kind of catalyst for change. But many of those networks actually happen outside active forum participation, and they are just as valid and just as valuable. The forum has a unique convening power by bringing the different stakeholders around an issue to kind of be the federator of the networks that happen to germinate ideas and collaborative approaches to problem solving. And so it's not the forum doesn't have to sit at the table every time that happens to not play a role, at least in bringing those groups together. So sometimes we're hands-on and sometimes we're hands-off. I think both are valid approaches.
Let's turn now to the structure of the annual meeting, the different kinds of sessions that will be happening over the course of the 5 days. How's the structure of the annual meeting designed to best generate these ideas amongst people?
I think what we'll try and build throughout the 3 days that the annual meeting is going on, a sense of community around some big events. So there's what we're calling the make history happen, whether it's involving the Middle East, security issues in Northeast Asia, climate change, the G8 agenda. We'll try to rally the whole Davos community around certain moments where we can do to build a sense of community going forward. And then we sort of provide a number of signals so that our members can kind of navigate specific issues. So whether it's business orientation, geopolitical, economic, society, and values, we'll provide a navigation form in which to do it. And then, as described earlier, we have a number of series of sessions to highlight and amplify some of the particularly action-oriented or solution-driven sessions where we look at a certain problem set or a certain issue and try to maybe exhaust a variety of angles in which that problem can be solved. The whole underlying architecture, though, tends to be defined. I'm not going to say it's 100% of the sessions, but we do tend to look at this through a prism of what is changing, what are the fundamental sort of shifts in kind of balance or power that need to be understood in order to be effective in offering solutions.